lovely to speak with you, Randy. I'm super excited about this conversation. Metaverse has been the buzzword for a while when we talk about, the marketing and the advertising community. They've gone gaga over it. But for the uninitiated, for myself and the audience, could you first throw light on what the metaverse is? And my rejoinder to that is, if I, as a layperson, wanted to have a different life in the digital realm, in the metaverse, I want a different personality, possibly different parents, a different nationality, maybe even a different partner. Would that be possible?
Yes, I love it. Why not change it all up? First of all, I want to say that if anyone's listening and doesn't know what the metaverse is or feels confused, you're not alone. In fact, I think most people who use the word metaverse don't even know what it means. I think a lot of companies are just including it into their pitch decks so that they can raise more money and sound more innovative with Web3. So let's start with a little lesson. Metaverse really applies to a three-dimensional virtual world that uses either virtual reality, a headset like an Oculus, or augmented reality that you would have on your phone to really have a very immersive experience. And today, mostly that's used for gaming and for entertainment. Gamers are very familiar with these immersive worlds. But what we started to see over the pandemic is that all of us started to spend all of our time in these virtual worlds. I mean, we're sort of in a metaverse right now, talking to one another across the globe with virtual representation on a screen. We all got so used to this. And so we can really imagine a very near future where we are working and collaborating in the metaverse. We're going to school in the metaverse. There are already fashion shows in the metaverse. And so I'm excited today to dive into all the possibilities for both business and for social impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Randy, you won't believe I was shopping on the Zara app the other day and they actually had avatars modeling their latest collection. But anyway, just picking it up from what you're saying, Randy, right now, some associate the metaverse with a dystopian world. When I think metaverse, sometimes I'm thinking about, the movie Ready Player One, people spending more and more time online, secluded, detached. Now, we're already coming out of 2 years of a pandemic of stay-at-home and isolation and lockdowns. What could be the social impact of the metaverse?
I think these are great questions, and the honest answer is that nobody really knows. What we do know is that loneliness was a global health epidemic even before the pandemic, and now it's tenfold with all of us being so isolated over the last few years. So in some ways, I can see the metaverse helping, and in other ways, I can see it potentially hurting.
I'm going to turn that question around and talk about what companies and brands are doing today. And you better than anyone else can answer the question. As we all know, even Indian brands and global brands, of course, have jumped on to the metaverse bandwagon without understanding what the metaverse is, what are the implications, what's their role as a brand in the metaverse, and most importantly, how will they engage the consumer? So I want to understand from you, are brands just rushing in because that's the trending subject today and are basically doing the same thing they did when one talked of big data, bite-sized data, all sorts of data. And as we all know, data targeting today is still pretty much a joke. So guide me in terms of what brands are doing, which poses a challenge, because let's face it, I'm a lay consumer. I consume some brands. I'm not interested in interacting with a Nescafe or David Off or any other brand in the metaverse. I'd rather interact with Aisha, who's a friend of mine, right? I'm more interested in her life than I'm interested in Nescafe. So give me a sense of what brands are trying to do, because I just think they're groping in the dark.
I would also rather hang out with Aisha than with Nescafe in the metaverse. So I agree with you there. I think the brands that are doing really well in the metaverse are, first of all, being very authentic. They're not going in thinking this is a marketing publicity stunt. They're actually meeting people's needs and being authentic. And I think two, they're really understanding the reasons that people are going into the metaverse. And I think the biggest reason that people want to engage with a brand right now is around identity and self-expression. You might be listening to this and think that you know nothing about the metaverse, but if you have ever tried to get the right URL for your business or the right handle on social media for your name, well, congratulations, you have engaged with the metaverse because you have cared about how you are digitally represented online. And so the brands that are succeeding are understanding that. For example, Nike. People love collecting sneakers. I have a huge shoe collection myself. I'm not into sneakers, but people who are into sneakers are really into them. And so Nike was really smart and acquired, instead of kind of like diving into the metaverse themselves, they acquired the leading virtual shoe company and partnered with that company to go into the metaverse. I mean, this might be a controversial one, but just to spark our imagination, the giant pharmaceutical company Pfizer gave vaccinated gamers a little badge for their avatars in the metaverse that showed that you were vaccinated in real life against COVID-19, like little things like that. You know, you wouldn't think that a pharma company could have success in the metaverse, but that's actually a pretty creative way to dive in. So just, you know, those are some of the examples of how companies are treading into the space successfully.
Just sort of playing devil's advocate here, Randy, when consumer internet was launched in the 1990s, I mean, most people thought it's going to be just about information exchange and emails and here and there and data collection, right? But there were people like a Jeff Bezos who had that vision, and we all know what, you know, consumer internet looks like today. Are we missing out on something on what the metaverse could be in the next 10, 20 years?
I think you're absolutely right that what it looks like today is nothing like it's going to look like in the future. And I think back to the early days when I first had a cell phone, when kind of mobile phones were coming out, and you could only SMS with people who had your same provider. So my husband had a different, he was on AT&T, I was on Verizon, and we could not SMS with one another. So that's useless. That was a completely useless technology. That's sort of where the metaverse is today. There are all these different websites. They don't collaborate. If you build an avatar on one, you can't port it over to another. So it's very clunky. We're at those very early stages where you can see glimmers of how useful the SMS will be when you can chat with everyone, but it's not there yet. And so I think a lot of the talk of the metaverse right now is people who are excited about the promise of what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years, while understanding the reality that it's not quite ready for mainstream adoption. But that's why people are buying up millions of dollars of virtual real estate in the metaverse, because they're predicting that people will spend time there. They're working on building 3D avatars and beautiful universes now for when people are ready. So it's a gamble, but I think an exciting one.
Randy, while everybody is going gaga over the metaverse, I'd like you to throw some light on the dark side of the metaverse. As we know, regulators are already grappling, and struggling with managing the negative externalities of the current digital technologies, whether it's issue of personal data collection, privacy, deepfakes. What are the kind of, issues that's going to come up in the metaverse and the dark side, and how will each country or each region tackle the metaverse, given that regulators have different rules for different regions?
And even cybercrime, I mean, added to that.
Yeah, these are great questions. And, I've been writing for 2 decades now about the pros and cons of anonymity online. Even from the early days of Web 2 and social media, I understood why people need to be anonymous online, but at the same time, I think people become the worst versions of themselves when they can hide behind screens and handles. Now, one of the big promises of the metaverse is that you can give access. For example, I'm working right now with an entrepreneur who's building a school for girls in the metaverse who in real life live in countries and regions of the world where girls are not allowed to go to school. I mean, that to me is a beautiful use case for the metaverse. And you can understand why these girls would need to remain anonymous and go to this school. On the other hand, we're also hearing reports of harassment in the metaverse, and everything that happens on the internet when people are anonymous is happening tenfold now when you can actually, reach out and touch someone in a 3D avatar. You can only imagine what that's like to be a woman in the metaverse. So I think there's certainly need to be a lot of evolution around safety standards, cybercrime, like you were saying, and the businesses that get in first have a lot of work to do to make sure that this is a safe space to grow and for brands to feel comfortable in.
Right. But Randy, just taking a leaf out of what you just said, I mean, for businessmen here and our audience, which is intrigued by the economics, I wanted to understand what are the problems for businesses to solve out there in the metaverse? I mean, what needs are there to fill in for? I mean, Indians have a long history of providing creative, cost-effective solutions. There's now an increasing number of high value-add solutions as well. What suggestions would you have for Indian entrepreneurs who are looking to turn to the metaverse for businesses?
I think there's so many opportunities, and there are even, I know we talk a lot right now about how the metaverse is 5 years away, but there are opportunities right now that I think are very exciting. First of all, education and training. I have seen some incredible virtual reality training videos where if you are training high skilled labor in your workforce, you could put out documentation till people are blue in the face, but putting them in an immersive environment where they actually get to practice their skills is really second to none. In fact, there have been so many advancements in surgery and in really kind of detail-oriented tasks because people have been able to practice in virtual settings. So I would say that education and workforce training is a huge thing that can happen right now in the metaverse. I also think customer support is going to be a tremendous business in the metaverse, because now not only can people be SMSing or calling a customer support hotline, but imagine when you can actually engage with a customer in a virtual setting and walk them through the problems that they're having. So that's, I mean, I could go on and on with, I have lists of interesting and exciting things, but I think especially when you think about some of the leading industries in India and how they're supporting a global economy, I think the metaverse is an immediate and exciting opportunity.
Tell me, Randy, what is humanity heading into? Do you think this is healthy for all of us to be interacting in a digital world and living lesser and lesser in the physical realm?
I certainly think that after the pandemic, people want to get outside and actually hug other people and see them and be with people. I also know that, the metaverse has to compete with the actual verse. I mean, I live in New York City. It's a very exciting place. I step outside my apartment and there's so much going on. The metaverse is going to have to really bring it to compete with that. And it's not there today, for sure, for most of us who live in places where our actual lives are more compelling. But I do think that we have to be thoughtful of other people around the globe who maybe don't live somewhere that's safe, maybe are living with a disability or something where the metaverse can actually truly help them access career opportunities and connections in a way. So in some ways, I think that if we're sitting here and we're able to be skeptical of the metaverse, we are sitting in a place of privilege, because it means that we have lots of other opportunities. But there are a lot of people in the world for whom technology is really their only way to level the playing field. And so I think it's really important to take that into consideration also.
Let's talk shop, Randy. For everybody who's listening, how do brands make money on the metaverse?
Well, right now, it seems like it's all about real estate. people are snatching up the kind of ideal real estate in the metaverse, just like you would buy real estate in the center of Manhattan or the center of any big city. There are multi-million-dollar virtual real estate deals going on, which boggles my mind a little bit. But there have been, I think, over $500 million of real estate in the metaverse that have been sold in just the last few months. So that I think is the biggest opportunity right now, is in businesses are setting up kind of real estate brokerage firms in the metaverse, just like they would in the actual verse. I do think fashion and art are really leading the way in the metaverse, which is exciting to me. My side passion is theater and producing Broadway shows. I have never seen a tech innovation before that was led by art and fashion. Usually it's just led by coding and platforms, and then the art comes years later. So this is a really exciting time for anyone who's working in film, in fashion, in the visual arts, because this is the form of currency that people are using in the metaverse. So I think those are two of the most immediate opportunities.
Also, Randy, what I wanted to understand was, I mean, what kind of an opportunity does the metaverse represent for just technology per se? I mean, advances like cryptos, blockchain, new sensor technology, 5G soon, and then 6G, and so on and so forth.
Yes, I mean, certainly we're going to be seeing an explosion of hardware in order for the metaverse to take off. It's a major factor in adoption. And, current VR headsets, they're getting better every year, but they're still a bit large, a bit cumbersome. And I'm excited to see where that technology goes. Also, computing power is a huge issue which also presents a huge opportunity for businesses. If you think about the fact that in the metaverse, people are going to want to attend concerts all at the same time, so you could have millions of people who simultaneously want to be in the same immersive experience. Well, we probably need 1,000 times the computing power that's available today in order to actually have that happen. Graphics, companies that are working in graphics processing, in 3D imaging, all of these things are going to be hugely successful businesses going into the metaverse. Volumetric video capture. So anyone who's working in those businesses, this is a great time to be in those industries.
Randi, I'm just going to change gears a little bit. You're a Silicon Valley veteran, and you've talked about how you've had complicated emotions about, at one point, being, a minority in the Silicon Valley, and you have complicated emotions about how women were treated in the Silicon Valley. I want you to throw some light on your experience at that point in time, and also tell me what's changed and what's remained.
In some ways, I'm very hopeful by what I'm seeing, and in some ways, I'm frustrated by how little has changed. When I look at the fact that only 4% of people holding crypto are women, it makes me just want to put my head in my hands and think, like, really, has nothing changed in 20 years from when I was on the front lines of Web 2? How are we just so much missing the boat 20 years later? On the other hand, though, I do look around, and when I started my career in Silicon Valley, there were no female investors at any of the top venture capital firms. Now today, especially in the United States, it's really a strange thing to see a venture firm with no female partners. And in fact, there are multiple all-female venture firms that are raising billion-dollar plus funds, which I think is really exciting. And I'm starting to see a shift in Web3, where even though the crypto assets are not quite held by women, when you look into NFTs that are more driven by art, that's almost 20% women, which is much more of an encouraging stat. So there are some things that are interesting. I'm still remembering in the start of my career in technology that businessmen would come into the office at Facebook, see me, ask me to get them a coffee, And then 5 minutes later, they would realize that I was the one running the meeting that they were there for. There's a lot less of that happening today, but having those experiences, I can understand why women would choose to remain anonymous in the metaverse and in the internet. It's much easier to go through this world as a man, and now you have the opportunity to with your avatar.
Also, Randy, I mean, there's a lot of focus on what could go wrong, and explainably so. It always is the case, right? When crypto came into existence, everyone was like, why do we need a digital currency? And now we have many companies and many countries adopting the same. But help us understand what could go wrong with the metaverse. Also help us dream a little bit. What if everything does go right? What could the metaverse be, say, 20 years from now?
I'm very excited about crypto. I'm also very realistic about the good and the bad about all of these things. I think some of the great things that I'm seeing are the ability for, especially for women and people around the world, to be able to monetize. When you look at the situation with Ukraine right now, cryptocurrency is really saving a lot of people right now in their ability to have money for their families and get paid for opportunities that way. Of course, though, whenever currency is changing hands anonymously, there are always people who are going to use that for nefarious reasons also. And so if we're dreaming a little bit about this world, well, first of all, again, because we're in the early days, the UX, the UI is not quite there yet. And so right now it feels like a little bit of a rough neighborhood to be in crypto or the metaverse. You have to always think about getting potentially scammed, because if someone is able to access your crypto wallet and your NFTs, there's no one to call. That's both the good and the bad of a decentralized economy. But once we can get through that, once big players can come in and help us improve the user experience and build things up a little more, I'm excited about a world that is providing a lot of economic opportunity for women. It does allow you to dream about the economic opportunity for people around the world who wouldn't have had access to that before. So that's what gets me excited about this world, is the chance to uplift women and give them the tools and access to improve their own lives and their communities.
Randy, before I let you go, I know the session is not about crypto, but I absolutely fell in love with your take on Adeles Hello. Would you mind if you sing that for us right now? It's 9 p.m. here, and it will really energize us if we could hear you sing that, your crypto version of Adeles Hello.
Yes, I'll give you a few lines and then everyone can check out the video. Hello, it's me. Would you like to talk about a cryptocurrency? We'll go over everything, 'cause you've got coins from different blockchains and want to do some trading. Hello.
Perfect. Round of applause, guys. Thank you so much, Randy. That was
awesome.
absolutely outstanding. Loved having this session with you.
Thank you, Randy.
So much.